the changes that make to Bristol, they're more likely to buy into them and support them, rather than if they feel that they're being done too.
Great, lovely, thank you. Now we have one more question from Simon Strange. Ask Marvin what he plans to do about traffic congestion and pollution.
Gosh.
Come on, you've got to solve all our problems.
I know, and let me just get this piece of paper out my back pocket.
Yeah.
So, I mean, congestion is Bristol's bone. In fact, I've actually just been having a conversation with someone from national government about whether they can provide us with a very, very significant amount of funding that could unlock our train network in Bristol. We have to have the alternative. So we have this fantastic urban rail network in Bristol with lots of urban train stations that aren't, a number of them are closed, and the rail network needs to be electrified. But we're not going to tackle our congestion problem through a stick and mend approach. We have to have a fundamental, alternative offer to the use of cars. I think our rail networks could be at the heart of that, and then hopefully you end up with virtuous circles. When people have an alternative to cars, it makes the road safe.
Exactly.
More people feel able to cycle.
Yes.
We improve air quality.
Yeah.
The whole.
It all comes together.
I'm thinking our rail could really be very helpful for that.
I'm so pleased to hear that, because it was such a fundamental part of our transport system, and we're not using it. And until we give our people something to use instead of cars, then they're obviously going to keep using it. So yeah, we totally understand that. We got a couple more questions. One more actually from Scott Murray. Could you please ask Marvin if he has any plans to encourage local small independent businesses, and if so, what sort of thing is he considering?
I've just got off the phone 2 days ago asking one of our councillors if actually they would be our small business champion for Bristol. And champion is not a cheap word. Champion is, I was talking to someone connected with business in Bristol, and he came up with a fantastic line. He said we would pay for the phone number of someone who could just sort stuff out for small business. And I'm thinking, actually, if we identified a councillor who could be that person, who could sort things out for small business, organise them, make sure that their voices are heard when we're looking at parking programmes, transport programmes, make sure small business voices are heard when we're developing our work experience and our apprenticeship programmes, making sure that we're putting the infrastructure in place that allow them to benefit from that. When tranches of money come down for inward investment from national bodies, from European bodies, that there is someone to champion the small businesses that are not necessarily have the space, the time to be able to put grant applications together and so forth, so that they don't miss out. So I think much of what we need to do is about leadership. What we don't want to do is get in the position where we're making announcements and there's no one there to pick it up and make sure it actually happens. So for me, it's about putting a team in place. That person all will be revealed. No, that person, I'm going to profile them and announce them in the next couple of weeks, but I just need to have a couple more conversations within the group.
So that's fantastic. So you've done a lot in a short space of time. I've asked you, what was going to be your first thing on your agenda in a joking manner. What was the first thing that for you was of the utmost importance to address?
Putting a cabinet in place.
Right.
Again, it comes down to the question of if you just make announcements, right, and there's no one to own those announcements, to pick them up, to drive them through, then there's much more danger of them being watered down and being lost. So by putting a cabinet in place, in the first instance, what we begin to do is identify clear leads. Paul Smith is our lead on housing. He has just gone out and started to do housing. He's talking to people who are talking about bringing hundreds of millions of pounds to Bristol. He's been, putting a map together of all the land sites in Bristol. Mark Bradshaw has now gone out and started to do transport. Fee Hans has gone out and started to do health. Cllr Hiscott has gone out and started to do education. And then we have our cabinet leads looking at the council directors as well. But like I said, beyond that, the cabinet is not the be-all and end-all of Bristol politics. What we really want to do is have other councillors picking up on cross-cutting issues, on issues that some clear, identified political leadership, some rallying points can really be delivered. And like Helen, I've been talking to Helen about doing it, how we can do a piece of work this is in line with her expertise about cultural change within the council, how we can make sure it's a fantastic place to work, so we reduce absenteeism, make it a place where people's careers don't come to a halt, but are fantastic platforms for their future lives. That's a huge piece of work, 9,000 employees, and and Helen can be a person that's really on the forefront of that.
Well, that's great. We're going to have to take a little bit of a break, but when we come back, let's talk about how maybe we can make politics a little bit more approachable. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Lovely, thank you. You're listening to The Word on Ujima, Bristol's #1 urban station. My name's Miranda. Today, The Word is 1 year old, so helping us celebrate is Marvin, the newly elected Mayor of Bristol, and Councillor Godwin, as well as a lot of other guests joining us later on. We'll be back shortly. My lords, ladies,